Welcome to Pathway 2 of the Eltv series Stop, Look, Listen. This video is looking at why the melanated distrust vaccines. Information contained has been reviewed to inform public knowledge. We encourage you to do your own further research and use critical thought processes to form your own opinions. All our compilations use information in clips which are already in the public domain. Contributors are credited throughout each Eltv video. For further links, please see the description below. We live today in an advanced and highly technological world with access to information as never before. There are strong arguments as to whether or not what's learnt from past events actually benefits the many or the few. In this pathway, we look at past events to spotlight why the melanated distrust vaccines. Although melanated people have been singled out for this documentary, that is, people of African descent, our research has shown a growing concern across all ethnic groups today. We begin with Tuskegee. In 1932, the United States Public Health Service worked in collaboration with the Alabama Tuskegee University on a controlled medical study of syphilis. Make a note of the year, 1932. The university was founded by Booker T. Washington. The university was America's first institute of higher learning for African Americans. Mr. Washington's successor, Robert R. Moton, agreed to the collaboration with the Public Health Service on the basis that the university be credited and jointly acclaimed for any breakthrough developments. By offering free healthcare, free meals, and free funeral insurance, the highly acclaimed Black University enlisted the participation of 600 field workers onto the 6-month program. It's important to note that in the previous year, 1931, government funding for development programs was cut. So it was already known there was no budget to complete the program before it even started. Because records are vague, we've been unable to ascertain the exact date when the experiment began. However, using the last possible date of the year, the very latest the study should have concluded is the 30th of June 1933. Outside of international conflict and war, what followed was the biggest state-controlled violation of human rights in modern times. At the start of the study, 399 of the participants were not told that they had syphilis. They were in fact in the late stages of the disease. The remaining 201 volunteers were merely enlisted to meet the criteria for statistical controls. 4 years later in 1936, local doctors were asked to support the project by withholding treatment and monitoring the participants until their death. The participants continued to have periodical medical examinations until the experiment ended in 1972, after 40 years. To provide a bit more context, World War II began in 1939, and more than 300,000 Alabamian men are recorded as active servicemen by 1941. You may be wondering why we're mentioning these statistics. Well, consider this. The war ended in 1945. In 1947, penicillin became the established and successful treatment for syphilis, yet the participants had treatment withheld until the whistle was blown on the experiment 25 years later in 1972. By then, some of the 40 wives who had contracted the disease had given birth to 19 children with congenital syphilis. After an out-of-court settlement of $10 million, which is about $4.2 billion in today's equivalent, The participants, their wives, widows and children were provided with lifetime health care. 11 of the offspring are alive today. We turn now to autism. In addition to antidotes, the measles, mumps, rubella, or MMR vaccine contains the live virus of each of those diseases, that is, measles, mumps and rubella. Ever since its introduction in 1988, the MMR triple vaccine has been plagued with relentless controversy. Excuse the pun. Here's why. In one urban area of the UK, melanated people make up 9% of the local population. In 2010, the incidence of autism in the non-melanated groups totaled 0.55%. That's just over a half a percentage. For the melanated group, it was a staggering 3.5%, more than 6 times the combined total of the non-melanated groups. Similarly, in the United States in 2014, a study found that there was a significant increase in the number of melanated boys with autistic disorders. In fact, the study was able to pinpoint that the increased incidence occurred in melanated boys who had received the MMR vaccine prior to 36 months of age. This is an extract from a typical UK developmental baby book. We'll just leave it here for a moment for you to consider. Do you see what we do? The first MMR vaccine is given at 12 to 13 months, with a booster at 40 months just before starting school. The Eltv team personally know a number of people whose melanated children were meeting or exceeding their developmental milestones and then stagnated or regressed after the MMR vaccine. Have a think about the people with autism who you know. Insulin is a hormone in the body which enables us to process sugars effectively. When that hormone doesn't work correctly, it results in diabetes. In the USA, a drug transparency bill was passed in 2017, which made it mandatory for pharmaceutical companies to disclose their production costs against profit ratios. The result of the first report is quite complex, but you can see it from the Nevada Independent link below this video. What we will point out now, though, is that over half of the company's profit margins for diabetes medication was in excess of $300,000 per year. Over $300,000. Oh yes, and to provide a bit more perspective for you, there were more than 60 companies in the USA alone. That's a minimum profit of over $18 million per annum just for diabetes. Now we ask you, where is the moral compass of any society which allows astronomical profits like this from sickness? And when you consider that African Americans have a 77% higher chance of developing diabetes, that would equate to $13.86 million melanated dollars per annum. The very people who make up the poorest sections of society. For the mathematicians out there, we apologise if the maths aren't quite right, but we won't apologise for highlighting the disparities. In Pathway 1 of our ELTV series Stop, Look, Listen, we introduced you to Dr. Judy Mikovits, who's done groundbreaking work around isolating components in diseases and antidotes. Dr. Mikovits is also one of many virology experts who has raised concerns about the content of insulin medication. Lyndon Wishart is a British melanated chef who worked against the odds to reverse his diabetes through his diet. Along with excellent recipes, he tells his story in his book, The Inspired Diabetic. He views his confrontation with diabetes not as a threat, but an opportunity. The question is, are the pharmaceutical companies making the most of an opportunity to help the sick and infirm, or are they just opportunists? So far, this video has presented a lot of information. For some, it will be the first time hearing any of it. In order not to overwhelm you, and to enable you to go off and research anything of particular interest, we'll leave it there for now. Keep an eye out for the next video in this pathway, where we'll explore further why the melanated distrust vaccines.